Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who kept us going for over 450 episodes.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week is Ed G. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ed.
There's I don't know if Ed used to go under a different name, but I think he's been with us for a few months. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
You get a special episode. You're the dude of the week for a special episode. We're doing a definitive edition of the Xenoblade Lorecast. Technically Act 2, but it's the first game.
Right.
When we went through that game, I think part of it is it had been a long time since you had played it, but also both you and Nico had different timelines.
Well, also, like, yeah, and then I kind of realized how the game is told from three different points of view that are not the same. So there's this sort of like they pull this narrative thing where they're like, hey, this person thinks this way, and this person thinks that way, and then this person saw it happen this way.
Right, yeah. So like someone's an unreliable narrator, and
yeah.
So we're gonna do a cleaning up of that episode.
And just to make it shorter too, because it's like the longest one, and I'm like, okay, let's try to make this, let's condense this, for people who are kind of like, I was kind of really jiving with 1 hour, 1 hour ish long episodes.
I genuinely think now in hindsight, because of that episode, I went back and read some more and stuff. We can get it to an hour. Maybe an hour and a half tops, but hour is what we're going to shoot for. We're going to try and lay it out as simply as possible. And again, none of these games are straightforward. Like, something that I think is maybe a little bit lost is putting it in chronological order like this is not how it's put in the game. In the game, it's like little nuggets spread throughout. It's
sprinkled. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully you're listening to this after the first episode, so you could just and then the original can be the original, which, much like the original game, was made under the impression that this is probably the only game we're going to get. So the story is what it is. What definitive edition was definitely made when they knew they were making after 2, before 3, but they knew they were making a trilogy out of it.
Yeah.
Well, so this will be again our definitive edition of chapter 2 or Xenoblade 1. This is Xenoblade.
It's a special episode in case you've already got it and you're ahead of time. There's going to be a normal episode coming, next week too.
Yeah.
So to set it up real quick, ancient history. We find the conduit. It's in Ethiopia, which is where Lucy
Kenya.
was found. Oh, okay.
Actually, they don't specify for Blade. They never say where. They just say Africa.
Oh, okay, because I thought it was where Lucy was found, which is in Ethiopia.
In Xenosaga, it's in Kenya specifically, but it's a dried lake bed in Africa. And the point in Xenoblade 3, when we see the two worlds colliding, they're heading towards that. Well, I mean, you're seeing it from like the globe, the whole continent of Africa, and it's Kenya, Ethiopia are pretty close,
right?
So it's heading to that point. You can basically think about it as Ethiopia or Kenya. I don't think either one are actually wrong, because again, it's not specified country wise, and I think the idea was that it's supposed to be. I think they really were trying to tie to where Lucy was found.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, so then to be definitive,
the birthplace of humanity.
Ethiopia is the country in Africa that has never been conquered, by the way. I was wrong. I said Kenya the first time we were going through, but it's actually Ethiopia, which is why
either way, we so as you're saying, so they find a machine buried in
perpetual motion machine. It free energy essentially, and with that, humanity, of course, advances extremely fast technologically, but emotionally and psychologically, we are still essentially monkeys. And so the same old problems that always happen. The world devolves into war. And at the moment where all is lost, sweet Klaus hits a big red button
Yeah. So
and rips the universe in two.
yeah, rips the universe in two. So yeah, like wait, who did what to why? Well, they had this big machine, perpetual machine. They put it up in low orbit so that in case something oopsies happens, there's a coup. People are a Saviorite rebel group is trying to take it. Klaus is basically like the world's already pretty much gone. They're about ready to the atmosphere's almost about ready to be burned up. So he thinks he's going to open up a port, like he's going to open up a door to a new world for humanity to escape to it. In other words, he's at 97% sync rate, which is funny because it's 3% off. Three is a big number in this trilogy.
It comes up a lot.
Yeah, he presses the button and it doesn't do what it's supposed to. It basically just scorches the earth of all life, and then half of his body gets ripped into another dimension. Now there was a supercomputer that was controlling the conduit, that was operating the machine. It had three processors, three main CPUs.
Again, three.
And Ontos gets ripped into this new universe that they open up when he goes to full power. Half of Klaus's body and his assistant up there with him, Galea, gets sucked into another dimension or another universe, really. And that's where Xenoblade 1 starts, chronologically speaking. So half of Klaus's body, his brain his consciousness is there in a sense. Galea and part of this processor, part of this machine, or like a CPU core is there. Now, the point of the CPU core is to regulate the flow of energy that comes out of the conduit, which is ether. This universe that they're in, the molecular structure of the universe is ether. Ether is the smallest particle of this, or antiparticle, really, of this universe. That's important for another episode. So this universe is made up of this energy source called ether. Only in this universe, it's matter, not energy.
Right.
And since Ontos' whole job was to regulate the flow of this, he can literally manipulate it. Like, the computer's job is to continuously do it. So they have this. He basically forms, makes a tool called the Monado to give to Klaus and Galea. The Monado lets them shape the world. Now, there's a whole lot of other philosophical backstory to the word monad, and
right.
stuff like that. If you want to dive even deeper on this, but anyways, so Ontos has these tools called the Monados. He gives one is given to Klaus, one is given to Galea, and they form themselves into new bodies.
Gods. They become
gods. Basically gods. They're gods. They're basically on an empty planet. They form themselves onto a planet that's just basically a water planet. And Klaus's body is called the Bionis. It's biological life. And Galea forms the Mechonis, which is like robotic looking, which probably says something about their psyches.
Right.
And then after a time, on his body, Zanza is the name Klaus gives himself. I don't know why they changed their names, but Klaus calls himself.
When you're evolving, you get a new name.
Yeah,
everybody knows that. You move to a new city. Yeah,
right.
You move to a new city. You start your life over. You have a secret family. You give them different names.
Exactly. So Klaus has, aka Zanza. He at one point takes cells from his body and gives them sentience, and he converts them into Telethia. I'm sorry, Hyentia. I got ahead of myself there. He converts cells in his body into Hyentia, giving them free will on what he calls eventually a mistaken whim. Telethia is their true form. Telethia is their weird biological. Have you ever looked at like a white blood cell or like anything, a cell in your body?
It's gross.
It's got a weird, gross shape, and Telethia are his weird, gross cells. But he turns them into Hyentia on a whim to give him sentiency, probably just because he's bored. But as Ontos at one point ruminates, he's lonely,
and he has a god complex.
And then so doing this, he basically life starts eventually growing and evolving on his body because he's just this giant titan the size of a continent.
Again, so gross. But
Galea, who calls herself Maineth at this point, she's on this big robotic body, and the robotic body just starts manufacturing other little robots to basically maintenance itself, if you will. So
yeah, I actually we didn't really cover this in the original episode. So there's nothing organic about the life on Maineth.
no, Maineth is
Purely
all mechanical, purely
Okay.
mechanical. And the robots are mechanical, but the robots, AI, whatever, they gain AI sentiency at some point. The robotic people that live on Maineth / Galea's body they call themselves the Machina, whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of time goes by, creatures grow and evolve and whatever on the Bionis. And there's two sentient races, and not much is ever really said, but there's a race of giants that grow and evolve on the Bionis. Giants in our sense, because they're like 10 feet tall to 10, 15 feet tall, right?
Right.
Um, apparently, in the side quest side note, there's a funny thing that talks about how they're constantly at war with giant spiders on the Bionis. But anyways,
Zanza's a dirty motherfucker. He got shit just growing.
His crabs became
That's why he made the giants. He's like, I have the Hyentia because I have a god complex and I want to create things in my supposed image. And then he created the giants because he's like, I got fucking crabs and I need something to kill the crabs.
Exactly.
Gross as fuck.
He is a gross god.
Disgusting.
Some point, the Machina and the giants and the Hyentia meet. They meet together. It shows them meeting on the hand or the upper arm of the Bionis, and they share technology. They basically share culture with them. The head of the Machina is a man named Egil. One of the giants he becomes best friends with is called Arglas. So Egil and Arglas are kind of like besties, and we see them hanging out as besties. And at one point, Arglas looks up to the sky and ponders. He ponders leaving the Bionis and the Mechonis. And then Egil's like, "Well, Maina says it's just ocean all around the planet, and then there's just the sky above us." He's like, "And what about beyond the sky?" And he says, "One day, our descendants, our children, our grandchildren are, somewhere will one day leave the Bionis." So they'll meet new life out there and amongst the stars. So Arglas starts pondering about the future, which apparently pisses Zanza off.
Well, he's a grade A narcissist,
right?
And again, a god complex. This makes sense.
So Zanza literally, because remember how he made everything was with the Monado. He can form and shape the Monado to different sizes. He puts the Monado into a sword-like form that that a giant could hold, and he has the Monado he puts the Monado somewhere on his body so Arglas will pick it up. Arglas wanders by, and Arglas is a curious sword. He picks up the sword, and then he literally gets possessed by Zanza.
Oof.
As Egil says, Zanza is the Monado. The Monado is him. It's sort of like an extension of his will. If anything, the two Monados are almost like beings. Actually, probably you could argue are actually housing the souls of Klaus and Galea. Maybe it's hard to really. It's a little hard. The game's a little wonky on that, but
yeah. One other thing that it's wonky on is the way that the Mechonis and Arglas meet, like the giants meet. So the fight has already happened.
No, it hasn't.
So how the fuck?
Nothing's happened yet. Arglas gets hold of the Monado, which now he's possessed by Zanza. So now Zanza now has a smaller physical form beyond just the Bionis itself. That Arglas. So and he has Arglas. Basically, the Monado basically can alter ether, right? So.
Right.
This is important in the sense because the Hyentia, if they get exposed to too high a concentration of ether, like radiation, if they're exposed to too high of a concentration of ether, they turn back into their cellular forms. So he needed to find a way to get to channel ether directly onto the Hyentia So he basically puts the Monado on his body, which Arglist picks up, becomes possessed by Zanza. Zanza can now sit there and use that to basically channel willy nilly all the high energy ether he needs, and turns all these high entia into Telethia. Why is he turning all the high entia back into their cellular form? Because he wants them to attack the Mechonis. And he launches a dual attack. Both the Bionis itself, literally with a giant, a Titan-sized blade, just attacks the Mechonis, and then Arglist commands a whole bunch of Telethia to go to the capital and just destroy the capital on a more precision level. So all these Telethia are going in and attacking the Machina capital, and at the same time, straight up, the Bionis itself comes to life and starts attacking the Mechonis, straight up. At Maineth or Galea, for if whichever one you prefer, has no idea why this happened. She has no idea why he just suddenly attacked her out of the blue like that. But it's because it's his narcissism. He's his fear, because he's afraid that his creations are going to leave him and forget about him. And God can't have that. God can't have his children forgetting who he is.
He also clearly has a fear of curiosity, because he thinks that the consequences of the last world getting destroyed, or the last world getting destroyed, is the consequence of curiosity to push boundaries. That's sort of like an overarching thing with Klaus throughout the games.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind too. He really likes to kill the cat.
Right, which is why when you're fighting Ontos in Future Redeemed, like Rex has this line where they're fighting, he's like, "Cheers to old Klaus. His gift just keeps on giving."
Oof. Oof. Sweet, sweet Cluse.
So that's actually a really good point too, is that I need to keep you placated and dumb, because curiosity is going to kill you all, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you never even really get to that point in the game. You just see him as a sort of you just see the narcissistic ego side of his brain.
Right.
Just being like, hell no. So there's this huge long fight. Eventually, Mechonis fights back. It, has a big old giant mechanical sword, and they get into the stalemate. At one point, Maineth gets her arm cut off. Like the Titan gets its arm cut off and falls into the ocean. And then with the free hand, chops a big old side swipe right into the side gut of the Bionis. Bionis comes down, just big old gash into the shoulder of the of the other Mechonis.
And now they're stuck together, just standing there.
And the thing is that the people who actually find a way to end this conflict are the high entia, the ones that didn't get turned into Telethia. They see Arglist doing all this shit, with controlling the Monado. So what they actually subdue him. They fight, attack. Who knows how many die in the process, but they subdue Arglist. They take the Monado away from him, for starters, and then they put him in this thing called Prison Island. So they chain him up and they seal him away, like just put him, literally clasp him in irons and bury him. And they're like, and they take them, and like, Monado's got to go somewhere else. So they bury the Monado in a completely different area on the Bionis.
Right.
Probably should have just thrown it out to sea personally, but whatever.
Where did Prison Island come from?
Prison Island is
in the belly button.
No, it goes there eventually, but no, it's just a hunk of rock near where the high entia live.
Right on God's nipple.
It's their Alcatraz, basically.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that is, so before they fight, is the Bionis and the Mechonis just standing there doing nothing?
Yeah, they're just standing there
just years.
Apparently so.
And then they start to move, and everyone's all like, "It's the fucking end times," which I would too if the world started walking around.
Yeah,
like it's a weird. I know that. I don't know that it is a reference to the Old Testament building the world from his own body, or humans from his own body type God thing. I'm sure there's a lot of creation stories where beings and the world are created specifically from body parts. I mean, in Norse mythology, Norse mythology, the world is built out of giant's body.
Mm-hmm.
Quite literally
and stuff. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I get where he's going with this, but he's literal about it, which is just so fucking weird. It's cool, but it's so weird.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the like, how do you stay on the kneecap?
Well, the high Entia lived on his head, so that was probably good for them.
Because they were lice,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. So, and that's where they are. But yeah, so they stopped the whole thing from happening. The people who did survive on Mechonis, Mayneth tells them like, she's got to go into like, recovery mode, and she's like, and she also says again, they have these Monados and that can manipulate ether. They literally can kind of see the future. Visions is a big thing in this game. Zanza, Mayneth, Shulk,
Later,
Montos. They can literally see the folds in time. Anyway, she's like, Zanza is not gone. He will probably come back someday. You need to make rebuild. Basically like make sure stay safe until then or whatever. Egil survived. Now remember, Egil was like Argliss's best friend.
yeah.
However, Argliss did have another homie. He had a giant bro who was ride or die for him. His name was Dixon. That's important to remember.
And Dixon don't fuck around.
So Dixon, he survives this war. He doesn't get imprisoned. Dixon somehow, I don't know. They don't say how he is able to do this. I guess because Zanza can do it, did it before. I don't know what. Dixon shrinks to the form of a Homs, which is a human.
Yeah, they never talk about that.
I never talk about how Dixon is able to like shrink into a Homs form or revert back into his giant form eventually. But anyways, he's not a shower. So yeah, he's a disciple of Zanza, as they say. Dixon's ride or die for Zanza. He's all for it. He doesn't care about killing off the Mechonis or whatever. So Dixon takes the form of a human, some point during, probably before he gets imprisoned. Right. And so he survives, but he is not caught, and people don't know. I don't actually, the thing is, I don't know what Dixon probably had another name before. So, because I mean, if your name was Dixon and you were fighting with Argliss who got imprisoned, you'd be like, hey, that guy needs to go to jail. His name's, that was his best friend Dixon. I imagine he had a different name. It's never said if he did. Anyways, Dixon plays Dixon plays the long game though, because nobody really knows where the High Entia buried the Monado. So that's that. So here's the setup now. It's like, it's been probably a few thousand years or more, maybe hundreds of thousands of years
since the war, right?
Well, since the start of creation.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then there was this big war. The war said went on for eon. Like war went on for a while, apparently. You get to the standstill. Argliss is imprisoned. Zanza's inside Argliss, imprisoned. The Monado is buried somewhere else. And one of the things the High Entia do after doing this is like, all right, we need to figure out how we need to not turn into Telethia. So they secretly try to form this weird. They figure out eugenics. They try to eugenics away their capacity for turning into Telethia. So they discover that if they interbreed with Homs, the human race, for all intents and purposes in this universe, enough, if they interbreed enough with humans, they'll eventually lose the ability to turn into a Telethia.
Right. But won't they also lose their long lives?
That's a good point. Probably worth the trade-off, though. All things considered. Yeah. So yeah, they start doing that. So they have their royal decree is like the emperor of the High Entia. He always has two consorts. He has a High Entia consort and a Homs consort. So, which again, polygamy was a thing in Xenoblade from the beginning. You just didn't think about it.
Look, the writer of this has a lot of interesting ideas, like eugenics, polygamy. I would hazard a guess that he takes a lot of the flavor from say the last 200 years of human history to paint this world.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of it.
So another weird thing to note, and it doesn't say when he starts doing this, but Ontos, the CPU, he makes a form for himself, and he calls himself Alvis. He gives a human form, and he presents himself as a seer, someone who can see the future. And he gets real close, real buddy close with the High Entia royal family as their official seer. It's also implied that Alvis changes his appearance like generationally. Like he pretends to age, die, and then his son comes along, and a relative comes along because he says, "Oh, I come from a relative line of seers." Maybe that's something he did. We don't really know. But like Alvis is hanging out with the High Entia, or Ontos is calling himself Alvis is hanging out with the High Entia, as their seer, their future, visionary.
And he is sort of a dick.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that's more relevant later on. But right now, he seems like a neutral dick.
He's very neutral. Well, he is very neutral right now.
But later on, he's not so neutral.
So a good number of years pass. Like we're talking like a good. I don't know the answer. There's probably somewhere you could calculate it, but we're talking like 1,000 or so, maybe in the hundreds. But a good number of time goes by,
right?
And basically, Dixon gets this idea, like gets wind that there might be the Monado might be buried somewhere in the ice on one of the arms of the Bionis. So he convinces an expedition to go out there and try to see, just as like, I'll go out there and see if it's there. And then when he doesn't hear back from them, he goes out himself. And when he finds the expedition, they did find the Monado, but they all died except this one kid. There was one lone survivor, which was like a 14-year-old boy or 4-year-old, whatever. It's a young kid, it's young Shulk. Dixon's like, well, got the Monado, and I have a new vessel. This is all good. So this is Dixon's long form plan. He finds the Monado. He brings it back to the human colony, which is all the way down on the shin of the Bionis.
You're right.
So he looks like a Hom. He takes the Monado, and he takes this lone survival of this lost expedition that found it back home with him. In the meantime, in the last few, however, hundreds or thousand years since, Arglist was imprisoned and Monado buried, the Machina has been at war with the Bionis, like basically, repeatedly, mostly through mostly non-sentient drones. They just send out just drone machines. So the Machina are just sending out constantly at war with the biological life, and they're just fighting each other constantly. And then setting up all the way to 1 year before when Xenoblade 1 starts, there's this man named Dunban, Dixon, and Mumkar. They're like three good friends in the Defense Corps. And there's a big, huge push from the machines on Sword Valley, which is like the big sword stuck in the side of the Bionis. So Dixon can hold the Monado. He can actually wield it. There's one thing that they do find out is that pretty much nobody can hold the Monado. It just goes way out of control. It just flies out of their hands, or they can't control it.
Or it messes them up, right? It like hurts them.
Yeah, so like rots them. So Dixon finds he can actually hold and wield the Monado somewhat. So he takes the Monado, goes into battle, and the thing about the Monado is that it cuts through metal.
Wait,
but it doesn't cut through people.
Dunban
does this.
Dunban, not Dixon.
Not Dixon.
Dunban uses. Yeah, sorry.
So Dunban finds out he can use the Monado. So he goes out and Dunban, he starts using it in this big battle. And he kills a whole bunch of Machina. He basically holds the line. He holds the front line from getting to the Bionis. Mumkar basically is just like, F this, I'm out of there. He tries to escape the battle, but gets captured by the Machina. And then Dixon and Dunban do survive, and they return home heroes. However, Dunban's arm is all kind of messed up. It's all like rotted and shit. So Dunban can't use the Monado anymore.
Yeah, he's retiring.
Yeah. He's retiring officially. So 1 year goes by, and the little boy that Dixon did find on that lost expedition with the Monado, he's 18 now. And he's just a lab nerd. He's just a total fucking geek. And his name is Shulk. And he works in the lab when he works with Dixon, and Dixon keeps telling him to get out of the lab, whatever. And what sets everything into motion is a plan by Egil, because when Egil saw in that battle 1 year prior to the start of the Xenoblade 1, oh shit, they found the Monado. Monado's been found. It's being used. It can cut through all our machines. So Egil's like, I need to figure out a way to get through this. So, so he starts experimenting in a really fucked up way. So one of the POWs, people, from that big fight, one of them being Mumcar, Dunban, and Dixon's friend, he basically is like, all right, I'm going to start putting them into what's called the Face Project. And he fuses human or fuses HOMS into machine because the Monado can't cut through biological material.
RoboCop.
So yeah, well, it's even kind of grosser because like they basically like strip their organs out and like basically make their blood or life force part of the literal energy circuitry flow of the machines they're in. And they have basically mechanical robo bodies and brains in an android at this point.
Gross. We like it.
So Egil's doing this. He's like, okay. So one of the people, he captures Mumcar. One of them is like the vendor from one of the shops from your hometown. He becomes one of the Face Mechon. There's another human colony further up the knee. He takes their head of the resistance fighters. Gatto is his name, and yeah, he starts making these Face Mechon.
And Mumcar fucking loves this.
Mumcar actually kind of digs it.
Yeah, he's into this because he is a nut job.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a complete nut job, and he's totally fine with it.
Yeah.
So it's like at the beginning of the game, it's been a year. Dunban's fapping arm is gone. He's
rough stuff.
Shulk's just a big fucking nerd, and a huge fucking attack of Mechonis attack Colony 9 down where Shulk lives, down on the Shin. And Shulk and his friends fight back. At one point, Shulk just runs into the lab and grabs the Monado and fights back because Shulk finds out he can actually hold the Monado and not get destroyed. Like it doesn't screw him up. In fact, Shulk gets weird visions. He can see into the future by a minute. So he can see enemy attacks, right before they happen. So he uses that ability to start attacking and fighting off the Mechonis that are, the Machina that are attacking his home. Unfortunately, Shulk's would-be waifu girlfriend, Fiora, and Dunban's sister, conveniently, she gets straight up murked fighting with them. And they don't know it at the time, but it's a big faced Mechon that kills her. And it's Mumcar, as you'll see later on. So he's straight up, and he's great too because they have my favorite line in the game where he's just kind of like, he starts talking to them and like he can talk. He's like, of course I can talk, and I've got a great memory. He's like, Fiora, get out of there, Fiora. He's like, it screams from music to my ears. He talks about like how much he enjoyed clawing his blades through her soft flesh like a hot knife through butter. So he says that to Dunban too. He's an asshole.
That's real hot. I mean, sick. That's sick. That's disgusting.
So he kills her, but then all these other little machines literally take her body, and they take Fiora's body away. And then once they have her body, they get a recall, and all the machines just
fuck off.
Retreat. They retreat, and they don't even know why. Shulk, super pissed. So Shulk and his best friend, who's a big meathead named Ryan, who's actually probably should have been the protagonist of the game, they set out on a revenge quest. They're like, we're gonna climb up to the sword. We're gonna cross the sword. We're gonna go over to the Mechons. We're gonna kill every one of them.
I'm sorry. I love the meathead. Why should he have been the protagonist of the game?
Well, because here's the thing. There's a very frustrating thing throughout the whole game, and I've noticed a lot of first-time players are noticing this. Shulk has these visions, but he's too afraid to tell anyone. And then when he does tell them, and then they believe him because they literally see it happening, they're like, all right, Shulk, you have a vision. You tell us. No hiding it, right? Yeah, okay. And then he doesn't do it. He does the same fucking thing over and over again. So like Ryan keeps trying to tell him, like, if you get a vision, you let me know. I'm your best friend. And he still keeps fucking like not telling him. And Ryan still keeps getting mad at him.
Well, yeah, that'd be annoying. Never gives a reason. He
He's just a
likes to play it
bitch.
close to the chest.
It's because he's it's just Shulk's a bit of a bitch. Like
Fair enough. Okay. Schultz a
Ryan,
bitch, Ryan's the hero.
Ryan basically says, like, if it wasn't for the Monado, he basically, and Shulk says it too, like, if it wasn't for Ryan, he'd be dead 20 times over. Because Ryan's the tank of the game, and without the Monado, Shulk's basically useless.
All right, so we like this guy, and they're on their way for revenge.
They're on their way for revenge. Dunban basically says, like, I'm going to heal up, and I'm going to, like, don't wait up too, don't get too far, boys. I'll be right behind you. So Dunban plans to meet up, and he does, and Dun meets up with them. They meet some other characters along the way. They meet a girl named Charla who was engaged to Gatto from Colony 6. But Gatto got turned later. Turns out it got turned into
Gatto got.
Gatto got. So she trades up for Ryan eventually.
Well, you know what? Can't blame her, I guess.
Yeah, they meet the Nopon, which are basically the Moogles of the game. They live on the back, or the back of the Bionis. They live in the real swampy area.
Like right at the top of the ass crack. They're just like,
no, that's Satoral Marsh, but the talking about like up on the shoulder blades, like between the shoulder blades.
Why you got a swampy ass shoulder blade, bro?
I don't know. It's a Bionis. It's a weird looking thing.
They live in the goddamn like back knee. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, there's a literal swamp up right above the ass.
Just not right.
Nothing lives there but lizards.
Get a little bit of fucking Old Spice body wash, my man.
Big enough for the time. So yeah, they meet. They meet. So the Nopon, which are the Moogles, basically, they meet a Nopon. They meet a deadbeat Nopon who's basically gets entrusted to he's the hero of the village this year. Yeah, which they later find out the village is just trying to get rid of their village idiot, and he owes a ton of debt to everyone. So but he's actually the best character in the game, even though he's like this 40-year-old father.
Hey, all right, we're getting fairly close to 40.
Yeah,
we got to have a.
We don't have 10 kids though, so
Well, I could.
Sure,
I could, and I could also have debts.
Right.
The thing about being irresponsible, guys, is I don't know.
I'll
leave it open.
Also, on the way up, when they meet the Nopon Ricky, that's the name. Nopon's name, Ricky.
Oh, fuck
Ricky.
Yeah.
They meet Melia, who's the daughter of the Emperor of the Hyantia. She's with 4 bodyguards who get murked by a Telethia. They have to take out the Telethia. Ricky helps. And then Melia basically, Shulk has this vision. He has this vision of Prison Island. And and he has this vision of defending an emperor and all that. So then Melia's like, well, okay, if you're talking about Prison Island and defending an emperor, the emperor's my dad. Prison Islands are Alcatraz. Since you saved my life, I'll take you to have like at least a meeting with him. So Melia kind of joins up with you, and then eventually you get up to the head of the Bionis. You meet the Hyantia. You meet the emperor. There's this whole inner political coup trying to go on because Melia is the daughter. Remember how I said the emperor has 2 consorts, a human and a Hyantia? Melia is the daughter of the human consort.
Which means she's not supposed to be able to rule, right?
Right. So she's not pure blood. And her brother, Callian, is the Hyantia, the son of the Hyantia consort. So there's this other lady, Lorathea, who's high up in the government, and she's just like, I can't stand the idea that like the emperor favors Melia. So she pulls this whole backstabby coup thing to try to get Melia killed. So Callian will be like the rightful heir.
Yeah, like you do.
Keep it pure blood, or whatever. That you help thwart that, you stop that, and then like you end up, which is really funny because you find out in this weird sort of way, like one of her top assassins, because Lorathea is also in like this high government official lady is in charge of the shadow ops group of assassins for the Hyantia, and I think it was her own daughter. Her own daughter is Tyrea, who's also, what the dirty secret was, she actually slept with a human at one point.
What? No, wait. So wait, not the daughter. The daughter's half human. is
Yeah.
the dirty secret.
I can't remember if it was Lorithia or no, because it's not Lorithia. Tyrea is also somewhat is related to Melia, but not by blood, if that makes sense.
She's going for that Hom's dick.
Well, it's like I think how it works is I might be wrong here. The consort, the High Entia consort had a love affair with a human daddy, and they gave birth to Tyrea. And that High Entia consort is now married to Melia's dad, and Melia is the daughter from the human mother. So you see how like they're stepsisters, but they're not technically blood related in any way.
This always happens in royal families. They're all it's just a mixture of incest and then weird other relationships.
Yeah, weird side chicks and side dudes and whatever. So.
And everyone's like, "Oh, you can't possibly, that person's from outside the clan. They can't be queen. They know algebra.
Right.
You got to pick your pureblood son who, gets angry and kills small animals."
Exactly. That's how it always shakes out, it seems.
He gets frustrated by math and just starts murdering squirrels. He can't give them any pets anymore.
So, yeah. Anyway,
sorry.
So you stop this coup plot. You stop Tyrea, who's like this distant stepsister under orders of Lorithia to kill Melia, but you stop that from happening. And then you eventually get access to go to Prison Island. You go to Prison Island, you meet Arglys. Arglys is all chained up. And while you're meeting Arglys, the Mechon decide to attack again because in the Mechon's eyes, that's Zanza.
Right.
We need to kill Zanza. Oh, Zanza's out in the open now. Excellent. Murder his ass. So
they're not wrong.
Mumkar comes in and he's leading a big attack on Prison Island. And Arglys is talking with Shulk. Remember, it's Zanza through Arglys. Zanza's talking to Shulk, and he's just like, I am the blacksmith of the Monado. The Monado is mine. And he's just kind of like, well, I can't. Shulk finds out. I should have mentioned before. When Shulk attacks Mumkar with the Monado, he can't do anything to him because there's biological fluid going through it. He's like literally it's biofuel.
Yeah, and the Monado up until this point cannot hurt biological life.
Only can hurt mechanical life.
Right.
So Zanza, chained up inside the body of this giant Arglys, goes like, "Oh, like let me teach you how to unlock the power of the Monado." So what Zanza sounds like he's teaching Shulk how to unlock the true potential of Monado. What he's really doing is he's basically like doing a full soul transfer. He's basically like, aha, right. So you're the one holding the Monado now. Great. Here, let me teach you how to do this. So Shulk teaches Shulk how to kill biological life with the Monado. Mumkar comes in and throws a big old effing spear right into Arglys and murders his ass.
Which again, at this moment for this action, we're Team Mumkar. That's a good move.
Well, in the game, you don't. You're totally like, oh my god, why would you kill this poor man? And like later on, you're like, he was doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, Mumkar is a psychopath and a real piece of shit, but he was technically on the right side of things.
Yeah, in a sort of. Yeah, sort of.
Look, sometimes these things work out this way. Sometimes bad people are on the good team.
With Mumkar attacking and killing Arglys is another face Mechon called Nemesis. And Shulk, in this fight with Mumkar and Nemesis, while they're trying to protect Arglys from getting killed, the Emperor gets murked by Mumkar. Mumkar kills the Emperor of the High Entia. And Shulk gets in a fight, and he chips the way, like the basically the cockpit area of the Nemesis Mechon. And who do we happen to see but Fiora in an android body with her face inside the space Nemesis?
Oh no!
Which that kind of changes things for Shulk and Dunban a bit. Kind of fucks them up a little bit in the brain. But with Arglys dead, they take off, and because Shulk now can actually hurt them, so they flee. Emperor's dead. Melia is basically named the new Empress on his orders. But Melia, Callian, who's her brother, says, you know what? You need to travel with Shulk to Mechonis to stop this. I'll do the royal, whatever royal pleasantries here. You need to go stop this thing. Well, there's also it gets a little more involved because like her brother knows that Melia's got the hots for Shulk, and he's just kind of like, if you don't stick with him, you're gonna lose him, kind of thing.
Get that Hom's dick.
Get
Everybody's after it.
Yeah. So Melia stays with the party after the Emperor dies. Arglist dies. Dixon then shows back up and negotiates a sort of treaty where like the Hyantia and the Homs and the Nopon are all going to agree to join their armies together, because the Hyantia at this point have just been ignoring the Homs completely. So,
which seems weird since they're dependent on banging the Homs,
right? But that's hidden. That's kind of
secret.
like not really. Yeah, it's kind of like secret, not secret. It's kind of like they don't really talk about it too much.
Well, because in a sense, really, the Hyantia are kind of pulling like a way back when a human emperor was all like, and I'm going to start mixing my bloodline with chimpanzees. So I will have a human consort, and I will have a bonobo whore. And then he favors the half bonobo child.
And that's exactly how it goes over for them.
She's hairy, but goddamn, she's got the kung fu grip.
She will rip your face off. You will literally get in her. If you want to get into a one-on-one, she will rip your face off.
It's just like the worst hand job you ever got. But up until the moment it became the worst, it was the best. It's just this is why Caesar revolted.
Hopefully they use lotion, because man, those bonobo hands get real get real rough. They get real chapped.
They're pretty rough. I'm so sorry I just did that to everybody. That thought exists in the world now. You're welcome.
Hey man, truth be told, if the human society modeled itself after bonobo society, we may not actually have wars.
That is true. We'd all be about getting our nuts off
all the time.
It's the only thing that matters. Banana and banging.
Thank you.
Wouldn't be bad.
All right, so Arglist is dead, and Melia's now Empress, but she gets to go off and gallivant around with Shulk because her brother knows she wants to bang him. She wants that Hom beef in her taco. So
hey, yo, Melia, I told you, Shulk, you're not gonna get none of this pussy. Oh, come on, I know you want that dick.
Oh my god, I haven't heard that in so long.
Okay. Vine days.
So they go down. Remember who I said Alvis / Ontos was always hanging around the Hyantia as their seer.
Yeah,
he's there too. Obviously, when you go to Prison Island, he's hanging around with Shulk and stuff. And he's like, all right, Shulk, let me take you to, like, you decide to go down to Sword Valley. Because Shulk's like, I need to go find this face Mechon. It looked like Fiora. So they're going down the arm. They're going down Sword Valley. So at this point, Nemesis is having like, who was that boy? Why did he say my name? Why did he say the name Fiora? I need to find out more about this. So Nemesis on its own takes off from the Mechonis. Mumkar sees this and is like, and so he follows her. So when you're on the arm, like getting close to the sword, like you have this chance encounter with Nemesis comes down and it's like, you boy, you called my name Fiora. What does that name mean? And Shulk's just like, it's like, that's your name, you're Fiora. Like, he's like, that's Dunban over there, pointing to her brother. she's just like, eh. And then Mumkar just kind of comes in and he's just like, nah. Like, I saw what you're up to, goody two shoes. You get a really cool fight scene with Mumkar. So while Mumkar and you are fighting, Egil, the head of the Machina, shows up and he's just like, all right. He's like, he takes Nemesis, which is Fiora's takes Fiora and is like, all right, Mumkar, let's go. And he's like, come on. He's like, come on over to the Mechonis. You're most welcome. And basically, it's just sort of like, yeah, bring your Monado, bitch. and he flies to Sword Valley, which is where you're heading anyways, I guess. So Shulk's like, all right, let's go to Sword Valley. You get in a fight. You get in a final confrontation at this fortress on the hilt of the sword with Mumkar. Shulk has the biggest puss out moment in video game history, where Dunban's about to, like, he's got like the cockpit pried open and Mumkar's just sitting there, and Dunban's about ready to fucking stab this dude for all the shit he did, and then Shulk stops him. He's like, no, there's a human in there. And I'm like, in no way do I agree with the sentiment of Shulk in any way, shape, or form at this point. And I'm so glad they recreated a moment very much like this in Xenoblade 3, where Lands, the Rhine archetype of that game, says, you better not fucking try to stop me, Noah, from killing this dude. And Noah's like, oh, believe me, I won't. And then Noah doesn't puss out in his great moment of, okay, some people got to go.
A great lesson of history is forgive that dude after he's dead.
Forgive him when he's dead. He dies anyways, sort of unceremoniously, just falling, down to the ocean. His last line is not like this, and yeah, I'm sorry,
but it isn't like this.
So yeah, Metalface dies, falls down and dies. And then you go in, you have another fight with Egil. Egil has his own big old mech he fights in. Shulk basically is just trying to get Fiora back. The whole fortress blows up. Everyone falls down from the hilt of the sword, which is standing out like this. And for no discernible reason, everyone survives this fall. And they wash up on the shore of the Fallen Hand from way, way, way back when the two Titans fought and Bionis cut off the hand of the Mechonis. Shulk finds Fiora, and then Fiora gets her memories back. As you find out, Fiora's actually been conscious the whole time.
Ooh.
in this body that she couldn't speak from, just watching everything happen.
That's a special kind of hell,
right? But it's at some point after the fall, it jarred it, so now it's Fiora in control of her own body again, or what's left of it. It's an android body. And then you find out the other person who was controlling her mind and her body is Maineth. And Maineth is actually all about helping Fiora. So
okay.
Yeah, okay. Like it actually becomes sort of a mutual cohabitance.
Well, because the thing is like Maineth is probably the only good, like fully good guy. I mean, Shulk is a good guy. Like Egil is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Granted, yeah, okay, is he technically on the right side? Yeah, but he did also mutilate, maim, and torture people to turn them into androids and killing machine. Like he's a piece of shit.
With the sole express purpose of wiping all, and he says it over and over. I'm going to.
He's a piece of shit. Maineth is probably like, she gets ripped into this world against her will. She tries to keep things chill. She creates life as she sees fit, but she's mostly, like, it seems, involved in their life, like, but doesn't require them to worship her. Yeah. You know, just like a semi-chill.
Maineth is the most semi-chill. You're absolutely right about all that. So yeah, the group do meet together. On the Fallen Arm they find a village of Machina, of machine people who want nothing to do with this conflict anymore. And they're totally fine to live out the days. And then on this Fallen Arm village, you meet this man, Iquail, I can't remember, whatever. You meet Egil's father. And he's basically like, he's like, Shulk, I need you to do something for me. I need you to kill my son. And Shulk's like, why? No. Like, he's like, there's no reasoning with him. We've tried. Like, he's been at this for forever. Like, he's not going to stop. He tries to tell Shulk, like, over and over, like, you need off my son. Like, he can't.
You got to kill him.
There's no reasoning with him anymore.
Yeah.
There's no none. So they basically lead you to the bottom of the Mechonis itself. and then you climb all the way up the Mechonis. You get all the way to the capital, near the head of the Mechonis, where all the Machina used to live. Mainith basically fills you in on everything that happened, from her point of view. And yeah, you have at least two confrontations with Egil, and Egil is like, no, like Egil cannot be reasoned. Also, you find Jade Face, which is Gato. You find him, you fight him, you defeat him. You have a nice little heart to heart. Ryan basically, as a sort of like panning off the torch moment, I guess, with him.
Where he's like, I am now going to be in your woman for you. Good day to you.
No, but like, because Gato's just like kind of like has like this, like, just go on without me. And Ryan's just kind of like, no man would ever give up. And he's like, and also he tells him, like, if you loved this woman, you wouldn't just run off and die with her. Like, sometimes protecting people doesn't mean just like running off into a battlefield without them and just like waiting to, in going on a suicide mission, because that's something he references before, where he's just like, you would have stuck with her, rather than just going off to die in a minute. You knew you were going to die. You intended to die, kind of thing.
I mean, let's not be so harsh here, bro. Like, come on.
But anyways,
maybe he had good fucking reasons. All right.
Torches passed. Ryan gives him a final drink, kind of thing. Again, you fight. You have multiple conversations. You have two conversations with Egil. The one thing is that Egil's father tells you, hey, his sister is with him. She's the one who put Mainith inside Fiora. She can be reasoned with. Egil cannot. So that's like your end. He's like, get up there, get in contact with the sister. She'll get you close to Egil, because she's still working with him, but she can be reasoned with. He can't. And that's basically how it mostly goes down, more or less. And again, Egil is just kind of like, your blade did not cut deep enough. Your words cannot sway me, blah, blah, blah. Shulk tries everything to reason with him. Again, Shulk's way too much of a pussy for me to ever say he's my preferred protagonist of the series.
Boy looks good in short shorts, though. Wait. Never mind.
And anyways, at one point, when you finally are defeating Egil, because Egil at this point is trying to basically control the Mechonis itself, the whole damn Titan. He's trying to like log in, and he's going to just destroy the whole Bionis Titan.
Which is technically still alive right now, just not moving.
Yeah. Which is a little effed up when you think about it, but I guess Mainith is technically inside Fiora at this point. But anyways, you stop him from doing that, even though he gets a bunch of people killed in the process, because he does start moving the sword. And Shulk basically gets him to stop what he's doing, or offing any more people. And then Dixon reveals his true colors. He shoots Shulk. After he shoots Shulk, he releases Zanza. And then Mainith has a fight with Zanza, but Mainith gets killed by Zanza.
Oof.
All goes down on the head of the Mechonis. And Zanza basically then takes her Monado. Because remember, she got one too. So he's like, two Monados, better than one. and then Zanza F's off, leaving Shulk's lifeless body. Dixon basically says, like, yeah, this was the plan all along. He's like, anyone would do. He was just the last survivor of the expedition. So hence he got to be the one, that I basically nursed along to like make sure that he came in contact with Arglis. He found he used the Monado. He was the one he was going to give shape to Zanza again. So, you think Shulk's dead. They take him back down to the Fallen Arm. They have like they have like a, whatever, back to tank there for Star Wars nerds.
Yeah.
So they bring Shulk back, they bring him back from the brink of death. Egil dies. By the way, Zanza makes sure
that guy.
Zanza makes sure to kill Egil. And then when Zanza takes off, because he literally forms his own little godly body with his two Monados now, he starts mass turning all the Hyentia into Telethia again. So everyone in Melia's family that's alive starts getting turned into these mutated cell forms.
Oh boy.
Leaving poor Melia alone. Oh, by the way, right before that happens, Melia tries to confide in Shulk, saying, if he ever, he can tell her anything if she ever needs anything, and then she just gets brushed aside for Fiora. So
ooh, that ain't right.
Melia gets friend zoned fucking mega hard in the game.
Yeah, but Fiora's dead now, so.
But she's in this android body.
But Maineth died.
Manus conscious gets wiped. So Fiora is in the Fiora android body is still around, but Maineth is dead. Maineth gets wiped. Maineth is killed. So you have an android Fiora. You have they basically have to whatever the word
Resuscitate.
Resuscitate Shulk. Aegil's gone. You have Aegil's sister's still around. She survives, but whatever. And then all the Hyentia are starting to turn into Telethia. And
things are bad. This is
bad.
What's called the low point, the dark night of the soul.
Yeah, exactly. So all the Telethia then start attacking all the other Homs and whatever life and Nopons on the Bionis, because they're going to turn them literally into ether blood. They're going to turn them into goo, which is literally blood for the Bionis. So the Bionis can come back alive, and he's going to like chop up the rest of the Mechonis and turn everyone back into his fuel, and then restart again.
Sweet skin cells.
Right. Yeah. So you basically your first line of attack is to go give the Bionis a heart attack. So you go in and you try to like give stab the inside of the heart from the inside, which Lorethia, that evil twisted Hyentia lady hanging around the top of government's there, and she gets a nice little kiss off of Melia's brother before he completely turns into a blob of goo, just his head sticking out. Yeah. So you kill her. She's a real annoying fight. You try to cause a heart attack. And then you end up having to fight Dixon. He goes back into his full-on giant form. You fight Dixon, defeat Dixon. Alvis turns out that he's working with Zanza. He's a disciple of Zanza.
Yeah.
And you're like, why is Alvis going along with all this? And then you go to confront Zanza. So you go back. Prison Island gets put it back down into the gut of it. So you go back into the gut. Like I say, try to give it a heart attack and whatever. And then for some reason they just drilled Prison Island into the gut. You go to Prison Island. I think they just did it because they ran out of time and money. They didn't have a new area to make. So
it was fair.
You go to fight Zanza, and when you go to fight Zanza, the room he's in, you walk through these rooms that looks like you're walking through space. And you walk past, like you're just walking on this floor, like a hologram deck. And you walk past like Saturn and Neptune and Jupiter and the moon, and then you finally confront Zanza himself. And Zanza tells you about whatever, Telethia are just my cells, hey, even offer Shulk, hey, become my disciple, you can live forever. And Shulk basically says I don't want to. And he's like, well, thank you for the second Monado, but I regrettably am going to have to kill you and all your friends now. So you have to go fight with Zanza. You kill Zanza, and Zanza's a little, Zanza can't even believe this is happening. And then Alvis steps in and just says well, this is the will. Alvis goes, this is the will of the universe. And Zanza's like, Alvis, how dare you betray me, kind of thing. He's like, I was here at the beginning and I will proclaim the end. So
that's a sick fucking line.
Yeah, that's one of Alvis' lives. And he gives Shulk a third Monado, and then Shulk kills Zanza. Three's a big thing there. So Alvis basically tells him, hey, this world is crumbling. You need to make a decision now. You need to become the new god of this world, because basically Alvis is time to delete it and refresh it. And Shulk's just I don't want to be a god. And he's like, Paul, if that's your will. And he's like, so Shulk says, what we all wish for is a world without gods. So that becomes Shulk's final wish, and just reset not really reset the world, but just everyone just goes on living on the collapsed pieces of the Titans now in the ocean. And Shulk's just I don't want any gods, no more gods, world without gods.
And he can't reset the Telethia back to the people that they were. So only the ones that survived are Hyentia. Everyone
that survived has some sort of mixed race in them. Those are the only Hyentia that survived. So Shulk wishes for a world without gods. Zanza's and that half of Zanza dies, which also causes the other side of Zanza to die in our universe. So Klaus. Klaus is dead. Galea is dead. Ontos basically is like, all right, rebooting the universe. You're wishing for a world without gods. So we're just, you're just wishing for the world to play out and like just as is naturally. Okay. Albus just basically reverts to being a core crystal, a CPU core, and that's where it ends. 1 year later, though, some weird shit starts happening. They see, in this new world that's basically just scattered pieces of the Bionis in the ocean that people are just living on now.
Yeah.
And they're building up their own little like homes, whatever. Hey, Alchemoth, the capital of the Hyentia, is up there on the piece of the shoulder of the Bionis. So Shulk and Melia fly up there. They get attacked. When they get there, they find out there's a group of Hyentia, Homs, and Machina that were all on the shoulder. They were living together, and then they decided to try to take the capital of Alchemoth back, but they got attacked by some entity. And then there was a dispute and an argument, and then so a bunch of them, so all the Machina, all the Homs, and some of the Hyentia split off. And then there's this group, this platoon of Hyentia only, who are like, we're going to retake our capital even if we all die doing it. Melia's like, whoa. Okay, hold on. I'm your empress here. We're not doing this. Like, we're going to work together and we're going to figure out a way to retake the capital. Capital is being besieged by these things called fog beasts, these weird, ethereal, like shadowy forms of creatures. And in the course of, there's this big rift appears above the capital, and this thing comes out. They call it the Fog King. It's actually a very mutated human from Earth. Spoilers. Yeah. But basically, it's pieces of our universe are being ripped into their universe. And so Shulk and Melia have to basically work together to find a way to close this rift in time space. Sorry, not time, but it's more space. And one of the ways they end up doing is a bunch of Telethia that are roaming around in the air help Shulk seal this rift off by closing it off. They have no idea why that's happening, but it gives them their first big clue something's a little wrong. That happens 1 year after Shulk denies being a god.
And then since we're doing a definitive edition, we'll just end it by saying 10-ish years after that is when
10 to 12.
Yeah,
somewhere around the 10 to 12 range is when
the beginnings of Xenoblade 3.
Yeah.
And so you can listen to the other episodes if you haven't already.
Yeah. And if you're wondering, like, well, what do you mean? What happens? It's like basically, okay, they find out these rifts are the first, like the foreshocks of two universes coming together and blowing up. So they decide they need to make an Ark-like machine to save, or at least preserve in some sort of cataloged way all the human life, all the life in their universe. And that happens again after the fact. After that doesn't happen in those games in Xenoblade 1. It
goes very smoothly, which is why Xenoblade 3 is extremely short. It's really easy. It's just 2-3 fights and then you're done. Give episode 4 a listen of the Xenoblade Lorecast for more. Our producers for this episode are Dragonwolf Makoto, Osnite, Cyberknight, Screwnami, Croy35, Hyperviper89, Hockey Kong 64, LCL Mayhem, Ziggy Z, and our dude of the week was Ed G. Thank you, Ed. And of course, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. We will catch you next time, dudes.
Later, dudes.